Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Academy of Air at Google. This is Roy. I am an account strategist and work with agencies. I've been at Google for about 4 years, and I primarily work towards optimizing performance on AdWords accounts.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kurt. I am also on the agency's sales team. I'm an account strategist, and I've been at Google working with small to large businesses in AdWords for a little over 3 years now.
So we're going to talk about re-engaging your users today, and we're going to go through a bunch of slides and try to understand what we could do to be able to do that better. And after that, we will be opening up for Q&A. So please feel free to start sending your questions right away, and we will be addressing them at the end of the presentation. So the most important thing that we want to talk about, like the idea is to talk about audiences, and audiences are extremely important because they add context to our ads. So while how digital advertising has been working for a while is we primarily work based on intent. So people make searches and we show them ad space as that, and people are doing different things online and we show them ad space as that. But what audience does is it adds context. So you don't know where your user is coming from, what his background is, what they do, what time do they spend on which video did they watch and stuff like that. And you want to be able to know that because some audiences are more important to you than others, which is where audiences steps in and you reach the right person at the right time with the right message, the right context. So as I said, audience will add that context to your ads, which we would not have otherwise if we did not have audience list in there. So there are 3 steps to audiences. First is to identify who your audience is, to be able to figure out who's more important to you and who's not. So for example, somebody who has come to your website 5 times in the last 10 days is more important to you than somebody who's never interacted with your brand at all. So you need to identify your audience and then be able to create the strategy as to how do you want to engage them, because there will be people who've bought from you and probably not make sense for you to sell to them again in the next 1 week. So these are people you probably do not want to spend your money on advertising. So you want to add them as a negative targeting. But if you want to re-engage a user, somebody say who came to your website as compared to somebody who actually added a product to the cart but did not end up making the purchase. So different kind of audiences would have different strategies, and you would have to ideally segment them before you start off. So identify your users and then figure out what your strategy is going to be to re-engage them. And the last piece is to expand. So you don't want to be interacting only with the audience that has already knows your brand. You want to be able to reach out to people who have not interacted with you yet. So those are places where we expand them. So we have solutions like similar audiences where you can try and reach out to people who look very similar to a certain audience of yours. So again, for example, it could be converters. So people who bought from you in the past, we would go out and find more people who fall in the same category and you could target them. So identify, re-engage, expand. Let's talk about re-engaging.
Let's talk about re-engaging. So the user attention is fragmented. And here's a couple stats. So 96% of users leave a website without converting. 70% abandon shopping carts without purchasing. And then 49% of users typically visit 2 to 4 sites before converting. So this just exemplifies how fragmented someone's attention is and how complicated the purchase cycle is now. And that it's very hard to grasp a user's attention and keep their attention and then get them to convert.
It goes back to the example that I was talking about the fact that there are different kind of strategies for different kind of audiences. So somebody who abandoned your shopping cart as compared to somebody who just visited your website will have a different strategy. And as Kurt mentioned, that there is a lot of fragmentation. Most people would have multiple touch points before they actually make a purchase with a brand. 58%, leading marketers, 58% of the people strongly agree that first party data is a strategic asset. So we work with a lot of our clients that have a very good CRM system where they record a lot of the data that's coming in. Now that data can become really smart, help your accounts, help your ads become a lot more smarter. For example, I was saying, so we have a product called Customer Match. So what Customer Match does is you can upload your list of email IDs into an account, and we would be able to match them at the back end and try to be able to target those users. So if you have a good CRM system and if you have that data, it can be used in a very smart way to try to reach the right audience that you might want to reach out to. 90% of smartphone owners purchase a plan to plan to purchase something after seeing an ad they describe as relevant. So one of the things that I really feel good about our ads is that, like, for example, YouTube ads, the option to skip the ad. So the fact that somebody does not skip the ad is itself an intent that they are interested in the product that you're trying to sell or the message you're trying to deliver. because of which reason there's a higher chance that they would purchase. So you don't pay until somebody hasn't shown the intent to be able to buy from you. You want to take this?
Yeah, absolutely. So organizations that leverage customer behavioral insights outperform peers by 85% in sales growth. And they also then have a higher gross margin at about over 25%. So by using your customer insights and all the data that we have available in AdWords, you receive higher sales, and those sales, the average purchase value is higher.
Yeah, and to add to that back again, like, if you are able to add this context, then you would be able to get a better return. And you already have that data. It's just be able to capitalize on that and make sure that you're using that data in the right way possible. Again, same example, somebody who's you already sold to, and you think that they would not buy from you in the next 30 days, you do not want to show your ads to them, but you would need to add that as a negative targeting to prevent that. So a lot of what we do in AdWords is, I say it's always a two-way thing, which is one is you try to optimize what's working for you, cost where things are not working for you. So audiences can help you do both of that really, really well. Typically, you would see people visit multiple sites before converting, and they turn your past visitors into customers by prompting them to return to your site, take action. So I have, say, for instance, I go to a website and I see something. I'm not going to buy it right away. I might go read some reviews. I might go on YouTube, check out a video about it. I might go on search and look up some, like, top 10, like I would generally say, I'm buying a car, top 10 cars in 2017. Now, these are all paths to me doing my research before what I'm going to buy. So it's not, in today's world, with that many options available to people do not go out and buy things at one go. They would have multiple interactions before they buy. You want to make sure that you're part of each of those interactions, because if you miss out one step, then you might be getting dropped off from the consideration set for the person. So if I am standing in a line in Starbucks and I need to, say, buy a backpack, I would look it up on my phone right away. And there's a chance that I might shortlist 3 different brands that I might want to consider. But if your ad was not on that mobile device at that point, then you are not part of my consideration set. While you might actually have the best product, but I'm not be able to buy from you because you're not in my consideration set. So make sure that you are on every device, on every platform, everywhere your user is, you need to be there too. So let's take an example about re-engaging your audience. So somebody, say, for instance, is looking for an Ed Sheeran concert. So they would probably be able to, like, they will go to Google Play Music and add that song to their playlist. They would check out a video. They would go to buy an album. They would want to go try to see if there are concert tickets available. So there are different places that they would go and search for this. And you need to make sure that you are in all of them. 38% of the people who buy products buy with multiple interactions. They do not buy it as one go, as I said. Yeah, this is just a few examples of how you could be on laptop versus your mobile devices, different platforms. There's YouTube, there's Google search, there's display ads. You just want to make sure that you are everywhere that your customer is.
And then in terms of audience lists can be customized for more advanced strategies and custom messaging. So delivering the right message to your different audiences. As you see, we go down the funnel here with basically this slide just outlines different messaging for example, for homepage visitors, your message to them would be a lot different than at the bottom of the funnel with past converters. With past converters, you would want to tell them, come back, or highlight complementary products. So very different messaging, and AdWords RLSA lists and different audience lists allow you the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. So also you need to also make sure that your strategy needs to be in a place where not only do you decide what the messaging is, but your bidding would be different too. For example, somebody who's just come to your homepage, you would probably not want to bid very high because, as you notice, they are much higher in the funnel. So these people are right now not shown sort of this is the right person to go after. So you would want to make sure that I'm going to bid lower for people who are up at the funnel. You could also create a list where it says, say, people who have visited my website twice. Now, the fact that they made a search and came to your website twice is a higher intent. So you would generally want to bid slightly higher on that. And as compared to that, if you see the example where it goes down to add to cart. So somebody who added a product to the cart, almost made a decision to make a purchase, but they did not end up going to buy it, which means that, I mean, they made the decision, but they've not made a purchase yet. They're very close to making a purchase. This is a very important audience. At this point, the sample list would look like something called cart abandoners. So if you're using a dynamic setup, then you would be able to, this list gets automatically created. And as you can see, the bids on that would be a lot higher, because that is the one list which, out of all these examples, this is the one which is the most productive, the most lower down the funnel it is. And so you see the RSA bid, the recommendation is 120%. And for display, we're still bidding $5. You want to make sure that for this particular customer, your ad is the first ad that shows up, and it shows up every time they search, because this person is very close to making a purchase. Moving on. So let's look at a few lists that we could possibly create. So one of the options is to create a customized audience list based on seasonal promotions. So the strategy can be people who have purchased from me in the last 365 days or plus. And then you have to have the strategy. Again, you have to figure out what is your product, what's your customer. There are cases where people buy, say, for instance, it's a face cream. So somebody uses it. You will more or less know that that product is going to get over in 30 days if they use it every day. So you would want to target those people in 30 days again. But if somebody, say, bought a car from you, that person might not need a car for the next 8 years. So that strategy would be different there. So you need to figure out what your seasonality is. At what time do people want to repurchase from you? Or is there a new product that you want to upsell to them? Or if you have a cross product that you would want to sell to them? For example, if somebody maybe buys a tennis racket, so you would want to send them tennis balls too. So that is how you would make sure that your strategy is you need to figure that piece out as to how you're going to do that.
Yeah, and one thing you can also do is cut costs. For example, in Rohit's example of purchasing a car, you could then exclude all converters and no longer go after new customers, and save time and money.
Let's take another example of how to use a list. You want to take this, Kurt?
Yeah, absolutely. So Google Analytics Smart Lists, the main value proposition of Google Analytics Smart Lists is that the system will determine which users are more likely to convert in subsequent sessions, and dynamically manages the remarketing lists to focus on those users. In creating the Analytics Smart List, the system will determine which users are most likely to convert and dynamically manages that remarketing list to focus on those users.
So one of the things about smart lists is there are a lot of times when we have clients who do not have enough remarketing knowledge, or like they do not have that many users coming to their website. So remarketing has the requirement you need to have at least 100 users on your remarketing list to be able to use it for display, and 1,000 for search. So if you don't have that many users, you will not be able to use the remarketing list, which is where smart lists comes in. It gives you the ability to be able to target, remarket to users who may not have specifically come to your website, but they are the right customers for you based on all the signals that we have. I have a quick question, Kurt. Do you know how many signals do we look at for every search that comes on Google?
Oh, that's a tough one. Put me on the spot, Rohit. I don't even know where to guess.
7 million signals.
7 million?
Yes.
I was going to say something much lower than that.
Yeah, which is why we keep saying that it's not possible for you to manually manage everything that there is. I always believe that there's at least some level of semi-automation that needs to be in your account, which is taking care of all these signals at the back end. Who's your customer? How often they go online? Which device do they like to buy on? What time of the day do they buy on? It's not possible for us to optimize that in real time. But if you have automation in your account, that can take care of that. And with automation, I understand that not everybody is comfortable doing that, which is why we have products which can be semi-automated. So you set your own bids, but you can choose to move the bid higher or lower basis the background of the audience. So we have, that's called enhanced CPCs. That is what it does. It tries to get you. So say, for instance, there's a customer where the chances of converting is higher, then the bid would go up. And if there's a customer whose chances of converting lower, the bid would go down automatically. So at least have some level of semi-automation in your account to be able to capture that little bit here and there, and to be able to make sure that your account is more profitable. So we have a few best practices that we could go through, just quickly running through them. When booking remarketing lists for engagement tactics, if you are using auto bidding, you should not segment your list by recency. So yeah, just like, for example, you can use 0 to 7 days or 8. Is it 8? Yeah, 8 to 30 days. So you should not try to do it by recency at all.
Cool. So imagine you're working with an e-commerce retail client. These list segmentations, you could recommend any combination of all site visitors, category page visitors, product viewers, abandoned shopping carts, and past purchasers.
Yeah, so this is basically going back to the same idea of having different strategies for different kind of audiences. Abandoning shopping cart versus somebody who's purchased versus somebody who's just been to your website are three entirely different strategies and require a different messaging, a different bid, a different setup completely. So to be able to be successful with audience, you need to make sure that you're making that strategy discussion before you set it up in your account. Remarketing to past purchase is always a good strategy when the client's business, and I've already spoke to this one earlier, that if you're trying to upselling, if you're trying to cross-sell, it makes sense for you to reach out to them. But for example, that car example that I gave, if somebody just bought a car from you, there's a very little chance that they will buy a car again in the next, I don't know, 5, 7, 10 years.
Exactly.
So it doesn't make sense to target them, but there are kind of people who would benefit from remarketing to users like that.
Cool. And then more lists is not always better. We need to have large enough sample size to make appropriate bidding decisions, whether you're bidding manually or auto bidding. Creating too many over-segmented lists adds needless optimization complexity and doesn't provide any value if you can't get enough conversion volume on each list to optimize appropriately. I've seen the most success with my clients who have had a very simple list setup because it doesn't overcomplicate the automation.
Yeah, and this is something that's also not just limited to audiences, but in general, your AdWords setup. We have come across accounts where people are like, they've created so many campaigns, so many ad groups, and each one of them have their own complexity. And at some point, it becomes very difficult to optimize those because you're not seeing everything to the same scanner. For example, if there are different budgets, it's not really competing against each other because it has its own budget. In the same way, as Kurt mentioned, while we want you to segment lists, don't overcomplicate it.
Exactly. Especially with the rise of automation, it's really important to keep it simple and allow our systems to work for you.
Yeah. Assuming you are not using auto bidding, you should bid on lists that bring higher value. So yeah, this is something that we already spoke about. There are different lists have different importance levels, and basis that you need to make sure that your bids are doing exactly what you want them to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no reason to segment your lists if you're not going to bid differently on them. So make sure to tier your bids so that you're getting the highest on the segments that bring the most value. So and touched on that earlier.
Sorry, yeah. And then you want to make sure that when you're starting off your campaign, the first setup is generally always very simple. You just an all visitors list get created. So there's a code that you place on your website, and basis that code, your all visitors list would get created within the AdWords account automatically. And in the beginning, if you try to segment your list, so for example, if you have say 5,000 people on your all visitors list, and you try to segment in 6 lists, it's possible that each one of them might not hit those 1,000 users, which means you will not be able to use it for RLSA. So the first thing you want to do is add the all visitors list as a bid-only option in the audiences tab. And what you're essentially doing is you have the ability to be able to optimize once you start seeing performance coming in. So you're not paying differently, you're not targeting a different user, you're just adding an all visitors list, which gives you one more report. And you can see, okay, out of, say, for instance, you got 25 conversions, out of them, say, 5 came from audiences. In general, we see a 56% lower CPA on audiences, be it all visitors. So once you start seeing that data, you start seeing that all visitors is performing better for you, you could bid differently. You're like, okay, I want to pay 50% higher for people who've been to my website in the past. And this is how you would start doing it. Once you have enough people on your list, you can start segmenting it out, making it smarter, optimizing it, but start with all visitors.
Excellent. Yeah, and then in order to show customized ads to different audiences on search, you should use the if audience ad customizer.
So yeah, we have ad customizers, which are different ways of customizing your ad kind of automatically. So for example, if you wanted to say advertise for Thanksgiving and you want to set down, say, a countdown 4 days before the event on like Thanksgiving, which is Thursday, I'm sure. So you want to start advertising like, okay, on a Monday you say 3 days to go, on Tuesday you say 2 days to go. So that is what ad customizers does. So one of the ad customizers is if audience. So you can use the if audience function to show slightly different text or different messaging to your audiences. A few more best practices. We're going to break it down in people who have like basic strategy and then moving to advanced strategy. You want to take the basic?
Yeah, I'll take the basic. So one is target all website visitors. So that's a no-brainer, right? So you want to make sure that you're getting in front of people who have already been on your site. So very upper funnel. So apply all visitors list to all search campaigns in the bid only, not target and bid. And they're called observations in AdWords, in the new version of AdWords that's rolling out, for those of you that have been whitelisted for that. And then the third one is set a strong bid modifier to start bidding to value, or use a Google automated bidding strategy like CPA, target CPA, target ROAS, target cost per click, or ECPC, sorry.
Yeah. So this is, again, the same thing that we've just spoken about, the fact that one, target all website visitors, make sure you add your all visitors list to your campaign as a bid only, so that you're not bidding differently or targeting differently. And the third part that I already spoke about is making sure that you are optimizing using the automated functions within AdWords, so that when you cannot get online and get things done, the system will be able to do that for you.
Exactly.
When you try to get advanced, this is the time when you are like, okay, I'm seeing conversions coming in from my remarketing lists, but what do I do? What more can I do? So you have an all visitors list. This is the time when you want to break it down, have different kind of lists, all of them with different strategies. And we already spoke about a few examples earlier. The other thing is that this is something that we don't generally recommend, especially for our, let's say, campaigns. So we do not recommend going for targeted bid. The most to have audiences in your existing campaigns as the bid only function. Reason for that is you have performance history in your existing campaigns already. So it'll be so much more easier for you to catch up and perform well. If you create a new campaign, one, it might compete against your existing campaign. Second, it will take a while to start working. So if you're doing this for a client and the client could come back and say, hey, this is not working. Well, it's not working because there's no data. It will take 2 or 3 months to get there. But if you add it to an existing campaign, it'll start performing the next day itself, which is why you want to do that. But then at some point you reach a stage where like, okay, I want to be able to be more in control. Say you want to show a different messaging. You're like, okay, my ad text itself would look very different to this particular audience. At that time, you can use a target and bid option to create a campaign where you're specifically targeting that audience and not just layering audience. You're actually targeting that audience. What is the best way to deal with competitors? Be the most trusted digital advisor to your clients. One of the things that I keep telling all the agencies that I work with is the fact that your client does not really know digital advertising as well as you do. So it's your job to educate them at the same time as trying to help them understand how things work here. So there will be cases where you will go and talk to them and they will not agree with you, or they will just not get the point. But you need to be able to educate them, help them understand what we're trying to tell them. At the end of the day, we are all here to try and help our clients grow and get better business. And they would be open to that if they understood where we are coming from. So be honest to them, tell them what they need to know, help them educate, help them learn what you're trying to, what's your point of view. And I mean, we talk in our teams and I always tell people that when you enter a room, you enter with an idea and the other person, the CEO of the company maybe has a certain point of view. You guys need to come to a common conclusion because, as you said, all of us there are trying to do the same thing, trying to help the client grow. So he's open to the idea, but it's just that he probably doesn't understand that. So it's our job to help them understand that. And if you are helping them understand, then they would trust you. You become the most trusted digital advisor. Every client that we have is getting approached by multiple agencies with different ideas. They might be working with you for 4 years, 5 years, 8 years, but if they find someone else who they think will be more profitable for their business, they will make that switch. So why let that happen? Why not you, the person, give them the new ideas or the new suggestions? So go out there, try to help them, do the best you can, and that should be good enough.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts on this? Good?
No,
Okay.
You covered it perfectly.
All right. So yeah, just wrapping it up. So there are 3 main things. People are connected for many hours a day, and they typically visit different websites, etc. Try and make sure that you are on each one of them. As I said, if somebody's searching in Starbucks and you don't show up, you're not part of the consideration set, and you want to be. You want to take the second one?
Yeah. So the second one is think about audiences, not platforms. So the path to purchase is very agnostic to platforms and devices. So the way to overcome that is leverage your remarketing lists across search, display, and YouTube.
Yeah, it also speaks to the fact that when an audience is trying to buy something, say one person, say Kurt itself, is trying to buy something, that person does not care about what your advertising strategy is, or whether you're on YouTube versus you're on search or versus you're on display. They will go and search or look for data wherever they think will be most valuable to help them make that decision. So you as a brand need to figure out, okay, what are the main platforms that my audience goes to, and try to advertise there. Now, as I said, the background of an audience is something that we cannot manually manage, which is where the audiences help. So make sure you're on all platforms, and make sure that you have that intelligence behind your audience, which would help you be able to get to the right audience, the right time, the right message, all of that. The last piece is to focus on the objective you want to achieve, which is what I just mentioned. So make sure you know what you're doing, what your end goal is, and how do you want to get there. So for example, let's say if I'm trying to buy a shirt, I would generally not go on a YouTube platform to find reviews for a shirt. But if I was trying to buy a gadget, I would go to YouTube and make that search. So YouTube is relevant to somebody who's selling a gadget, but it's not relevant from a review perspective for somebody who's trying to sell a shirt. So you need to know your goal. You need to know which products, where your clients are, possibly at what time, what they're doing. But as I said, a lot of that is something that we cannot manage, which is where audiences come and help us automate that. But trying to make sure that you know where your audiences are, make sure you are there, make sure you know who your important audiences are and you're bidding higher for them, make sure who your less important audiences are, you're bidding lower than them. I have an example for this. In fact, we're running into Q&A now. So yeah, just while we wait for questions to come in, I just wanted to add an example where I have this client where they have a very good CRM system, and they broke down their audiences in A, B, and C. A being the most valuable. These are people who keep coming back and buying from them. And C being the least valuable, somebody who's only purchased once, or the purchase value, the amount that they paid for the purchase was very, very low. So it's not that profitable as a customer. But somebody who was segment A is probably buying from them every 3 months, runs thousands of dollars of bills. So these people are more valued as compared to somebody who's on the list C. So what they did is, we run the count, all the audiences that fall into segment A, they're bidding 200% on that. And everybody who falls in segment C, they're bidding only 120%. So while they are still important audiences because they've interacted with us in the past, we are only bidding 20% higher than what I would otherwise bid. But for somebody who falls in segment A, I'm going to bid 100% higher. All right, awesome. Let's take some questions. Questions should be coming in here. All right, let's see if we have any so far. All right, so we have a few questions. The first one is, what is the list of emails are not Google emails? Would you still be able to target them? So yes, you will be able to. So to give you some context about this, we have something called Google accounts right at the back end. So you could possibly have a Google account even if your email ID says @yahoo.com. So I have an email ID, rohitaduke@yahoo.com, but that is actually a Google account. So when I was trying to sign up or watch a YouTube video about 10 years ago or something like that, during the sign up process, they asked me, do you want to create an account or do you want to use an existing account? And I used my existing account, and they asked me for a password. So when I entered that password, Google created a Google account at the back end. And that account, like while I'm not accessing any Gmail or anything with that, I can choose to do that. So as long as there is a Google account associated with an email ID, you can use those audiences. We right now do all our matching based on that Google account. We're trying to add the ability to be able to do that matching process using emails and phone numbers and addresses too. So yeah, you should be able to target them and it'll be totally fine.
Okay. Another question is, are smart list parameters based on personal activity or business activity? So it would, to answer that question, it's both. So it's any activity gets recorded. So we don't have the ability to decipher whether it's personal or business, and we try to target you appropriately. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, yeah, in general, like any kind of activity that you're doing, and we are able to link it back to you. Like one thing that I want to mention though here is very important. None of this information is personally identifiable. We know for a person, okay, so it's profile 1 likes playing badminton, profile 1 likes eating out at restaurants, but we can never link that profile 1 back to that one person. Plus, it's all collective. We don't look at one person in individual, look at 5,000 people on a list, 20,000 people on a list. So as long as the activity is happening and we can tie it back to that particular profile, we will be able to use any kind of activity, be it business or be it personal. It depends on what IP you are on, what machine you're using, what phones you have, depends on all of that. So if you're logged into 2 different accounts for 2 different machines, the behavior for those 2 might be slightly different, because in your work machine, you're trying to look for different kind of things as compared to your personal life. So it depends on, if you use the same device, then it'd be same. If you're using two different devices, it could be slightly different.
Yep, exactly.
We have one more question, which is, how do you identify a customer who has purchased for auto though there is no online purchasing happen? So I'm not 100% sure the question means, but I believe we're trying to figure out is that if somebody were to purchase a car, how would we know if they purchase it or not? So again, there are multiple ways to do that. One would be, the way we set up our tags is we could have something called a conversion page, where when somebody hits that page, and that page can only be reached after you make a purchase. That conversion code fires, and that one conversion is recorded. Now, when that one conversion is recorded, this particular user also gets added to your converted audiences list automatically. So you have a list which says all converters and all your converted audiences in there.
Yep.
Now, for a car dealer specifically, we have something called store visits, which is a beta right now. So it records people visiting these stores physically, and how it does it is it would go back and check that, did you search for a video on YouTube, or did you click on an ad on google.com? And if you did, and then you followed it up by going to the store, then we know that a store visit has happened. We still don't know if they've made a purchase yet, but we know for a fact that an ad triggered them to go to the store. Having said that, we have another product called offline conversion tracking, where we could tie that data back into the AdWords account, and we could actually tell you that out of the 5,000 people who walked into the store, 200 of them made purchases, and which 200 of them. Again, not personally identifiable. It would be like a profile, 200 profiles. We don't know who that person is. We don't know what they do, but we know for a fact that they looked at an ad, they walked into the store, and they made a purchase and walked out. Awesome. I think we don't have any more questions coming in, and we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.